connected to everything, and that's why I'm in everything. All eyes on me, all eyes on everything. That means everything. Eyes connected to everything.
What's going on, everybody out there? Hope you guys had a great week. Welcome to the podcast, Things That People Don't Want to Talk About. Every time I hear that, man, that's such a bop. Just in case you guys didn't know, that is John, and I know he's going to talk about his stuff, but it is such a bop, I love it. Seriously. So we're here with things that people don't want to talk about. Thank you. Welcome. Get on in here. We love having you guys here. Today we are discussing a few things. But I just wanted to go around our panel and introduce everybody. And our hostess with the mostest, she is attending to hostess with the mostest stuff. She'll be on soon, so you will see her in a minute. And in the meantime, just want to introduce everyone, and just say, hey, how was your week? So we'll first we start off with John. John, you want to do your introductions?
John Skywalker, the Sly Talker here, lyricist, spoken word artist, martial artist, personal trainer, lover of life, student of psychology, and I am a father. And if you look right down here, listen to my album, Final Dimensions. John Skywalker. John Skywalker. Look up that name on your major streaming platform device, music streaming platform device. Did I say that right? Yes, I did. John Skywalker, Final Dimension. That is my latest album. Hip hop, conscious, positive. Salute.
And how many albums do you have? Because I don't know if you know, but you didn't mention.
Man, so I say 5, but it's really more than that. It's like 8, but 5 official. I'm gonna say 5 official.
Oh my gosh!
And more coming. There's more coming. There's more.
And you're deep in there.
Father's Day album coming, and yeah, there's a lot of projects going on up here. But yeah,
love that, love it. All right, next up, we're gonna go to Mr. King Newborn. Please introduce yourself.
Peace, peace, peace. This King Newborn. You can follow me on all social media platforms, and as always, I am of service.
You gonna tag yourself out? I'm gonna need you to big up yourself, bro. Come on, you're gonna come over here. You got the deep voice and the microphone. You need to talk about what you're doing out there in life, brother.
How you doing, Omar?
There we go. There you go.
By default, right? Yeah. So I'm Omar. So I'm here today at the BS of at a panel. Trying to lend my I guess expertise on the topic of today, which is law enforcement. I try to keep my social media footprint a little bit, as small as possible. But recently, I've been thinking about actually branching out, going out there, and doing a little bit of. I want to start a YouTube channel, just educating the populace about law enforcement things, stuff that people don't really know. Like a lot of times, I watch these engagements and I see, people asking or challenging law enforcement in ways that are not correct. And if we can get the populace to be a little bit more educated, then maybe they can either make the right challenges or at least know they're right. So I will be creating a channel in an effort to try to educate people a little bit more about things that law enforcement can and can't do. And it's not just about Constitution or, having probable cause or stuff like that. There are a lot more that goes into it. So yeah, I have a criminology degree. My degree from George Mason University is in criminology, law, and society. I have a minor in intelligence analysis and a major in homeland security. I worked for the Washington D.C. Police Department for 8 years. I left in 2001. So yeah, from 2013 till 2001. So that's why I'm here.
No, we appreciate it. Hey, thank you. So just to rewind it back a little bit, today we're going to be speaking about police brutality. And we definitely wanted to bring on both sides. So that's the reason why we have Omar here. Omar is here from the perspective of someone who served in the community. You said that you served in in South DC, correct?
Southeast.
Southeast. Okay.
Southeast, yeah.
Okay, so before we come on, so I can introduce myself. We have Israel. Israel just popped in. He just popped in. Thank you so very much, Israel. Can you go ahead and shout yourself out and let us know why you're here today?
Not a whole lot to say. Of course, I'm Israel, last name McGee. I'm just here to join in the conversation and hopefully add something that can help both sides, not just the side that I stand on, both sides.
All
Hmm.
right, I appreciate that. And before we go
Peace,
forward,
peace.
yeah, love that. Thank you so much. And before we go forward, my name is Ivy Tanner. Just in case you've been watching this, I am a former Army broadcast journalist for 20 years. I'm a lover of life. I'm a mom. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. Thank you for being a friend. Y'all know I got 17 hamsters that be rolling on my little wheel at any time. And the reason why is because I'm ADHD is I don't know what. You can find me on TikTok as Inattentive Ivy. I'm a future art therapist. I'm a lover of life. I love psychology. I love talking about ADHD, mental health, things that soldiers go through. So I'm kind of like the resident loudmouth, and I think that's the reason why they invited me to come on here and talk with you guys. I think that's the reason why. So everybody is clocked in. We all good?
I think so.
Trying to see if God level is ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Trying to
she's
see.
not ready. Keep on.
All right. All right. If until we get her in here, I mean, we can just keep we can start everything off, give shout outs to
Yeah,
what we're going through, So I guess I'm gonna turn this over to John. John, you do your thing because
oh,
whoa, listen, you're the one who starts the conversations off. And I
oh
know that
man, is that
you
my monitor right
no,
there?
you start the conversations off, bro. Come on, man. I mean,
But you
well, let
started.
me go ahead and say this. Okay, so God level was she's very passionate about this topic, and
Yeah,
that's the reason why we're speaking about it, because our mission for here is we want to give people back what they have lost. We want to make sure that we represent the community and represent people of color like in a way that is positive, and we want to give you guys something fair and balanced. So there she goes. There she goes. Your hair is herring, ma'am. Will you please introduce yourself? You're
Unmute
on
your mic.
mute. I think you're muted.
Yeah, you with the picture.
You all know that I am a nurse. I usually
Yes,
try to
ma'am.
leave at 5:30, but I had a patient come back and I had to see to it that he was straight before walking out the door. That was, that extra 15 minutes. I be needing that, as you can see. But my job I love the fact that they allow me to leave because my shift don't end until 7, but they let me leave at 5:30 because they know that I have a podcast. So
Because
I
they
love them
know.
for that. They know. They know. So yes, as Ivy was stating, yeah, I've been seeing a lot. But before I let me introduce myself. My name is God.
Please,
This is
please.
things that people don't want to talk about. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I am a mother. I am a nurse. I have this podcast. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a cousin. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. I am everything good.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
welcome to our guest, Mr. Omar. I'll never forget that name.
Yeah, I know. The wire, right? Yeah.
People joke with you about that. People joke with you about that.
Yeah, I got people that come up to me and be like, "Hey, you,
I
Omar coming, yo."
Oh my God. I
love
can't.
that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a little goofy. Excuse me. But again, like Ivy was stating, this is really hitting home for me. It's really hitting home for a lot of our people in our community. The videos that are surfacing online are sad. They're absolutely sad. So I want to start off by talking about what does it take to become a police officer
Oh,
before
you
we
don't want to do the first question, or you want to do that to lead into the question?
we're gonna lead into the question. I want to know, what does it take to become a police officer? What type of training do you all have to go through? What type of psychological evaluation do you all go through? Um, Take me down that road first.
Um, I mean, obviously, it starts off with the individual having that desire to join in, and once you apply, then you go through a series of steps, and for the most part, what's going to happen, or the most significant parts of it, is going to be just your physical. You're going to go to your physical, make sure you're physical health's in place, and then they're also going to go through. You're going to go through a mental evaluation as well. The physical health, it's basically making sure that all limbs and joints and all that stuff work. Any documentation that you have, any medical history or stuff that you have is documented with the department, because you know, if you get injured while you're on a job, that's kind of like on the department. So anything that you had prior have to be documented. Um, Certain things are going to be disqualifiers, of course. You know what I mean? High sights and stuff like that. You're here, and
Mhm.
all those things have to be on point.
Mhm.
Um, the mental health aspect of it, you have to sit down one on one with a psychologist. They put a whole bunch of multiple choice questions in front of you, and you have to answer those questions. And based on the way that you answer those questions, that kind of make a determination. You can get DQ'd or disqualified based on how you answer those questions. I don't know if I can. I mean, just to give a kind of example of what that those questions look like, it will be like, are you? Could you shoot a dog? You know what I
Mm.
mean? And if you're someone who's an animal lover and you said no, then that's probably going to be a disqualifier. I'm not saying that it is, but it might be a disqualifier. I guess I would guess the answer to that question would be more like, if it's possible, if that animal is going to kill somebody and I have to take that animal's life, then yes. But I really love dogs and I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not just going to
Mhm.
go around. So those are the things that they go through with the, as far as like the mental evaluation part of it, and more than anything else, I think what they're trying to assess is, there is a A-type personality. You have to be able to take charge of situations, and they're trying to assess if you are that personality that can get into a situation, take charge, don't crumble under pressure, that type stuff. Problem solve on the fly. Just
Mm.
those evaluations. And then in addition to that, you also have to do a lifestyle poly, so a polygraph. So they go back through your entire childhood, you know what I mean, drug assessment, stuff like that. What have you used, what have you done? Background check entails your credit history. If you have, they want to make sure that you don't have money problems or financial problems, so someone can't blackmail you, or as officers
Mm.
you're going to come in contact with a lot of people that want to bribe you and so on. You don't want to make sure that you're not someone who's going to want to take those bribes, or tempted to take money if you're on a search of someone's residence and you see large sums of cash and stuff like that. None's going to come up missing. Um, so that's the financial aspect of it. There's a criminal history. Have you ever been arrested for anything besides, like simple misdemeanors, maybe like traffic offenses and stuff like that. Anything else above that will definitely get you disqualified from the process, or unless you get some form of exception because it got expunged or there was a misunderstanding or something like that. So yeah, I think that pretty much about sums it up. There's more to it, but those are the more significant parts that they actually really pry into to make sure that you are qualified to be able to do the job.
Okay. I have a question. Can we go back to the psychological evaluation? Is just a multiple choice question? Do you actually sit down and talk to someone? And if you do, how long do you do that? Is that just a one-time thing and then you do the questionnaire and move on?
So for the qualifications for you to do the background, unless something is flagged, let's just say you sit down and with the psychologist, and you're being evaluated, and something gets flagged as far as like a character trait that they want
Mhm.
clarification on. This never happened in my case, but there are cases where something might get flagged as a character flaw, and you have to go back and get a reassess or get some clarification on that. But
Okay.
um, that was kind of like a two-part question. The first part of your question is, do you sit down with an
Mhm. Yeah.
individual and get and
Mhm.
talk to that person one on one? Yeah, they do. Like a matter of fact, as soon as you sit down, like in that room, as you walk in that room, you start getting evaluated. There are questions like they will. This is not tradecraft or anything, but they will, for instance, say, I'm still getting ready. I'm not quite ready yet. Let me get my stuff together. Just sit down over, grab a seat right there. while I get my stuff together and they start asking you some questions as if you're just like two persons shooting the, shooting the crap. But
Okay.
realistically, you're being evaluated once you walk into that room.
Okay. All right. Um, Physical training. Um, how to disarm people. How long do you all do training?
So you're talking about the like, because there are different aspects of our training, right? You're
Okay.
talking about in the academy or on the job.
Yeah. How long is the well in the academy? How long do you have to go?
So your academy can last anywhere from like 6 months to about 9 months, depending on certain things. Like for instance, I'll answer the length, the time part, and then I'll break down the contents of a training a little bit more.
Okay.
For instance, for us, when we were going through the academy, one instance that came up, I don't know if you remember, there was a young girl missing. She's still missing in DC. I think at
Mhm.
this point she's presumed dead. Her name was Relisha Rudd, and the FBI was looking for her as well as like local PDs and all that. So we were taken out of the academy for weeks on hand to go search through different neighborhoods. So they used the academy, the cadets at that point for manpower. So you
Oh
can be
wow.
taken out of the academy in your training to go do something that is considered like um, highly important or a priority to your jurisdiction, and that can lengthen your training. As far as like water training, my training took 9 months. I was in the
Okay.
academy for 9 months, and then there's also what we call Christmas break. So during the Christmas season, crime goes up because it's in law enforcement. It's we look at it as far as like seasonality. So in Christmas, when it's leading up to Christmas, like the predators are out and they're looking for like easy praise, trying to more
Mm.
robberies, more carjackings, more property crimes. All those things are gonna go up. So they take you out of the academy, they put you out in the field. They might put three cadets with maybe one seasoned veteran officer to bring up the numbers, and you kind of go around and get a little bit of experience that way. So that can make your academy experience be a little bit longer. As far as the content or what her training contains, the greater part of your training is going to be like constitutional law, and like for us it was DC code. So that's basically the municipality or
Mm.
the area that you live in. You're going to learn everything about each laws in those areas and the way you actually implement them. Um, because that's where you get your police powers from, right? That's how you get the ability to arrest and so on. And then so that's the book part of it, and you go through a lot of that. Then there is stuff like driving, where you have to learn, make sure that you learn to drive, where they teach you, just drive a little bit above, I wouldn't say a little bit, but above normal driving skills for the average person out there. You don't need to know about, understeer and oversteer and what a vehicle does in snow, what it does in the wet.
Mm.
For us, we have to know those things. You have to know where your corner starts, where the apex is, or you hit it, all that stuff. So you learn to angle a vehicle a little bit more than you would as an average driver. So you're going to spend a little bit of time doing that. And then there's going to be shooting. You're going to spend some time in the range learning how to shoot. That's like the very last part that comes. There's going to be a lot of scenario based stuff where the stuff that you learn from um, the curriculum. How do you put that into practice in group sessions where you're learning to, okay, you go in this house, da 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 da, scenarios, and you have to figure out, how you get out of those scenarios. And then defensive tactics, there's also defensive tactics, or we call them DTs. Defensive tactics is where you learn to, the basic stuff, I would say very, very basic, shrimping, sprawling, joint manipulation, takedowns,
Mm.
escape on the ground. How do you escape if you get pinned on the ground? That type stuff. I would say defensive tactics, we spend about, I want to say it's about 80 hours. I'm not sure. I don't want to quote the time frame and get it wrong, but I think it's about 80 hours that we have to go through for defensive tactics.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the core, the meat and potato of the academy. But there are other little things there that you have to learn as well.
Okay.
Does the go ahead?
No, go ahead. No, you got it.
I just want to ask, as far as like going through training or the academy, does it depend on the jurisdiction you're in, state by state, city by city, or is it pretty much across the board the same?
So there's a standard. There's a standard of stuff that has to be taught through every academy. But there's going to be variations based on the laws, because every jurisdiction actually has their own set of laws. Every state has their own set of laws. So you're going to learn to do things a little bit differently depending on which jurisdiction you're in the academy for. If you're in the academy for like a federal law enforcement agencies, then all federal law enforcement agencies are adhered to the same standards. But states, all states have their own standards based on that state law.
Okay.
You have a you have. Go ahead, because if you don't have a question, I was about to say, go ahead, Mama. You good?
You got a question?
I do, but you might cover it, so you go ahead.
Shoot. Dang it, girl. My hamster. No. It went and it just is gone. It's down 70 right now.
I'm so sorry.
It is.
Well, then let me throw this out here again. Let me throw this question out real quick. So, do you have to learn not only your federal constitution, but you also have to learn the state constitution as well?
Yeah, we have to learn the state constitution. Not just the state constitution, but you got to remember that every time the Supreme Court. So there are all these different states have their Supreme Court, right? You got Georgia has their Georgia State Supreme Court. Virginia has their Virginia State Supreme Court. But then you have the Supreme Court of the United States, right? And that's the Supreme Court. So something that might be law in Georgia or might be law in Virginia could change if the Supreme Court decides that they're going to go ahead and take up a case and the Supreme Court rules on that case, and that becomes precedent. So whatever the Supreme Court says at that time, every state has to adapt. There is no state that can supersede something that was handed down by the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court doesn't take every single case. So every state have to adhere to the Constitution, and that's where they get it. They get their overall ruling powers from, in a sense, or their guidance. But they have variations. But they can't. Those laws cannot be contradictory to what the Supreme Court puts down or what was in the Constitution.
Do you have a follow up? Because if not, I wanted to ask a question.
Go ahead. I'm writing out my question now, just so
Okay.
if I get thrown off, my hamster can continue to flow. Go ahead.
So you were talking about the training that you guys do, and me and John, we served in the military, so it's like I'm kind of relating, I guess, the things that you guys go through, almost like to what we had to go through, like prior to a deployment, right? Or just like if you're in garrison, like the things that you have to learn to be a soldier. But I wanted to ask, do you guys learn, like you said, that you learn all the laws and the codes of your specific area, like the specific area that I guess that you're going to be patrolling or working in? Do you guys also learn anything about the culture of the place that you're patrolling in, and what do you learn anything about the culture of the police force? Is that a part of your training? Like like different, I guess different police stations, like almost like different units have. Different units in the Army have a specific culture. It's not necessarily something that's law, but it's just a part of kind of what they do. So do you guys learn the culture of your police station, almost like we had to learn like the official but unofficial culture of the units that we were a part of and that we were deployed with?
So I'm gonna take your question in two parts. I'm gonna take it like from a micro sense first, and a micro sense would be like, for instance, I was in DC. So yeah, in the beginning, we didn't have to learn so much about. We learned about riots and stuff like that, and major events as far as like First Amendments and stuff like that. Because you got to remember, DC for me is a very for me in particular, like everything that I present here is going to be from that prism, right? From the prism
Absolutely.
of um, Washington D.C., and it's a very unique place. So it doesn't matter where an issue starts. For some reason, it somehow winds up in D.C. because
Okay.
that's where kind of like change. That's where the halls of change is, right? So if you have a gripe in Alaska, for some reason they come to DC to protest about it. So a lot of the issues that would start in different areas of the country finds its way into DC, and we wind up having to tackle it in some way, shape, or form, either through First Amendment or you know what I mean, or some form of right or something like that. So
Okay.
we have to learn about those incidents and the fact that things are going to be presented to us that are kind of like not necessarily, Alaska could be doing something to their citizens, but in DC we're going to have to address it because there's going to be a protest in DC about something that's going on in Alaska. So that's the micro aspect of it. And
Oh.
then they also recently, I don't want to put a time exact time frame on it, but I think it was in about maybe 2016, 2015ish, they opened the black African American Museum
Mm.
in DC. And
Hmm.
now and so every year we had to go through the black history, right? So we had to go to the museum for an entire day to just learn about black history. So for black culture from slavery all the way to present to the very last significant incident that took place up until I go. So like I would say the very last significant incident that we had, I'm just gonna go with George Floyd, right?
Yeah.
So you would learn everything from slavery to George Floyd, and how it affects the black community and so on and so forth. So, but before the African American Museum was open, um, there wasn't that kind of concentration and black culture. But
Mm.
we had to go to the Holocaust Museum. We had to
Ooh.
go to the Holocaust Museum to learn about what the Jews went through and all that stuff. So that's the micro aspect of it. As far as like the micro part of it now, the little cultures, the little idiosyncrasies and nuances of the department and the officers. Yeah, you don't. It's not in a formal, right? It's not gonna. They're not gonna give it to you in a formal way. Like it's not gonna be sit down and like, okay, this is but it's like it's implanted. You know what I mean? Like in
Yeah,
the
it's
way
definitely a
you're
part.
taught. Yeah, in the way you're taught, and because you're being mentored by officers that, maybe have like 20 something years in the department, they're instilling those little cultures in you as you're going through the academy, and then when you leave the academy and you go out on the street and you get put with your FTO, a conversation that usually goes something like, okay, everything that they teach you in the academy, kind of forget about that. Okay, I'm gonna
Oh,
teach
yeah,
you.
I,
I'm
I
gonna
figured
I'm
Hey,
gonna
that.
hey,
I figured that.
I'm gonna
yeah,
teach you
yeah,
how to police. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then you kind of like start. I guess that's probably gonna be one of the biggest impact on and how you police is
So,
your FTO.
okay, can you break what is the
I
FTO
was just
again?
thank you.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
as a
sorry, Mom.
field training officer.
I
Yeah,
was
field training
Field
saying,
officer. Yeah,
training
and
officer.
I
Thank
was an
you.
FTO in the last years
If you're
of my
tenure there.
career as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the reason why I wanted to ask, like, do you guys? Everybody has a culture, right? Like everybody has, like, even the like subcultures or whatever. So I guess, speaking about the incidents that we see in the news, like George Floyd. Like who was the person who told you guys specifically that we're going to go to the Holocaust Museum or we're going to go to the African American Museum? Like who was it who had you guys do that as a police station?
That comes from like training and development. So you
Okay.
have a training and development branch, and they're the ones that make the determination of what we need to be putting special emphasis on, as far as like training and developing officers.
Okay. Did that come from like the police chief? Did that come from higher?
Pretty much, it has to. Like he has to sign off on that. If he doesn't sign off on it, it doesn't. But it's going to be something that's going to be presented to him. I'm not saying that he doesn't have an original thought where he actually says, I think we should do this, and then it comes down. But in most cases, it's probably going to be, like a group or a panel that comes to the department and says, I think you should do this or you should do that. And there's heavy influence over the DC Police Department, civilian. There's heavy civilian influence over the DC Police Department. Even or complaint review board is run by citizens.
Okay.
Mhm.
Wait a second. I got to write that down. Did you say the complaint review board?
Police complaint board, yeah, it's run by citizens, by civilians.
Is that in every police station or just in your police station?
In every station in DC, but I can't tell you about every state or every
Okay.
jurisdiction. But
All right.
DC has a civilian police complaint review board, so all the complaints get sent to the. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on their name right now, but before I leave, their name will come to me, and
All right.
and then they kind of take a look at it, and then they kind of make the determination of what the department should handle and what they're going to handle, and they investigate all the complaints that they decide that they needed to take, and they make the recommendation for discipline, pass it down to the department, and then the department reviews it and submits it or implements it.
Okay. Anybody else?
So
I'm sorry. I've asked a lot. So
yeah, so okay. I want to go back to training because I'm my focus is there. How much time do you all spend training on how to disarm someone safely?
um so I would say not enough, right? um if you're talking about from defensive tactics, right? Almost. So we do firearms requalification 2 times a year. So twice a year
I'm
you have
glad
to
you said
requalify
that.
with your firearm, right? Um, Once you've left the academy, you go back for what we call PDT, or professional development training. That's what PDT stands for. Once a year as well, and in that PDT, you're like owning in the stuff that is recent or current, or um, you might look at a specific incident that took place and think, okay, we need to hone in on this a little bit more, and train and concentrate on making sure, like for instance, if we went to PDT during George Floyd, then they would be focusing on, okay, notice Chauvin right here. He had his two hands and they were available, but his two hands were in his pocket. But he proceeded to keep his knee in George Floyd's neck. I don't want to say the suspect, because then it's kind of like I'm not doing justice to him by saying his name. But we probably wouldn't say George Floyd in training. We would just say the suspect. He still has his he has his hands in his pocket, which means his hands are free, but he still has his knee in the suspect's neck. And not just that, he has it there for an extended period of time, even though what I mean, like they will break down every aspect of how that occurred, what led up to that, and how did it get to the point where he actually, and they would try to break that down. But one of the main areas of training that I would want to emphasize for law enforcement is, so we once we leave the academy, we never have to go back to defensive tactics again. We never have to do DTs again. So, for instance, myself, as soon as I joined the academy, I as soon as I decided I wanted to become a police officer, I started seeking out, um, MMA, mixed martial arts training, because I figure there's a level of confidence that is going to give you, as to get out of a situation. I always look at it from this perspective. I might not need it 99 times, but there's that one time that I might need it to get me home. And if I don't have it, then I'm out of luck. But if I have it, I have that option of using it. Now, how many of my fellow officers actually did that? Very few. You know what I mean? But a lot of law enforcement are paramilitary as well. So, you have a lot of guys that bring unique skills to the department. My thing is I feel like there should be more emphasis placed on training how to,
Yeah.
let's just say, a 5'4" female going up against a 6'5", she's probably what, 140 pounds, going up against a 6'5", uh, and it doesn't have to be a female. It could be a male too. Going up against a 6'5", 300-pound male. What skills is he gonna have besides the what we call the less lethals? I don't know, less lethals or pepper spray, ass baton, taser. Uh, those are your less lethals. Besides less lethals, what options does he have? Because there's a use of force continuum, right? And it doesn't jump from, we're talking to, no, I'm taking my baton out and I'm just beating you, right? There's levels to where you can go in that engagement, and there are parts where you have to be using your arms and your hands, because that's what the use of force continuum says you can do in that level of the engagement with that suspect. Until that person becomes assaultive, then you can't use your less lethals. So if it's just active resistance, which is someone is just actively resisting you and not wanting to go in handcuffs, then you have to use pain compliance. You can't go to your less lethals yet. You have to
Mm,
get that. You have to use joint manipulations and stuff like that to try to maneuver that person until they get them in handcuffs. When that person becomes assaultive and starts striking, kicking, punching, whatever, then you can escalate on the use of force continuum to the point where you actually use your pepper spray, or your ass baton or your taser or whatever it's called for at that time.
okay.
I'm going back to training. How, okay, I'm gonna say training. After you graduated from the academy and you
Mhm.
are a police officer, and we talked about this yesterday. You all do see a lot. I
Mhm.
will say that as a nurse, I see dead bodies all the time, but you all see them in its most rawest form: head blown out, dead kids, dead people, dead bodies. How do you all deal with that? Do y'all see someone, a psychologist, throughout your years as a police officer, dealing with everything that you see out on the street or wherever you're patrolling?
Yeah, I mean, it's available. You know, I
Is
don't
it
want to shed. I
required?
don't want.
Is it
It
required?
is not. So if you get into certain situation, then it's required. Like
Mm,
for
Okay.
instance, if you get into a situation where you had to shoot somebody or take life, or
Mhm.
then it is required. If you had to use deadly force to a certain extent, then it's mandatory that you have to clear a certain session, a certain amount of session. I think the department recommends six. If it's not six, it's seven session with the shrink to get you cleared. But
Okay.
when you go, then they can determine whether or not you need to go for a longer period of time, and then it becomes
Okay.
mandated that you have to go, because if you don't go, then you don't get cleared back for duty. So
mm,
you get your weapons taken away. You're on desk duty and so on and so forth until they say he's mentally ready or she's mentally ready to go back to work. Go back to work. As far as like when you're on the job, there's always that availability. There's always a system in play. We have the police department has their own. I don't know about every department, right? So
Hmm.
I'm only speaking from DC, as I said. But
Okay.
most departments have their own police and like fire clinic where police and fire department go to get their treatment. So you don't necessarily go to the regular hospital or stuff like that. We do go to the regular hospital, but we have our own police and fire clinic that takes care of our mental health issues and so on, and our physical health issues as well. Where we get
Okay.
every year you have to go to your physical. So you don't just get your physical and get the job, and you never have to do a physical again. You have to do your
Mhm.
physical every year, where you go in, get your blood test, all that stuff, get your hearing check, your eyes check, your physical abilities check, all that stuff.
Do you also do a psychological evaluation too once a year?
Not
Or
not once a
no?
year, no.
Okay.
The only, like I said, there's always that psychological treatment is always available to you, and all you have to do is just say the word, and make that phone call, set that appointment, go in, and someone is here to talk to you.
But how many people are going to actually do that? You know,
Yeah, I mean it's
how
that.
many, especially, you all are macho men. You don't want to look like anything is wrong with you. However, you do see a lot and you are exposed to a lot.
Yeah,
I just, I
that's.
just
I
think it
mean,
should be required that even just being a police officer, you should have your mental health checked every so often to make sure that you are in the right state of mind to continue to do your job because it's a lot.
yeah,
You know?
I mean,
And
I can't even,
and the
like you
reason why
said,
I
I
say
can't
that,
even. No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, and the reason why I say that is because it's so many police officers out there that I've seen that are overly aggressive.
Hmm.
They're not using the skills that they have been taught to disarm people peacefully. Um, they're on an adrenaline rush, and some seems to be mad and angry all the time. And what our country has taught us, please excuse me, is that when you step out there in that blue with that gun, with that badge, and you take a life, it's all forgiven because of your job. But to go back with training, I and I'm just a regular person. I get what you're saying about when you got in the car with your what is it, FTO, field training officer, when he said, everything that you've been taught in school, throw it out. I get that. As a nurse going through nursing school, we were taught the basics, but we didn't get the real training until we were actually out there on the floor. And you yourself, as a person, determines how well of a nurse you're going to be or what type of a nurse you're going to be. And we do see a lot. But for you all, it's on a whole nother level. I think that it should be some type of system in place where you all go and sit down and get checked. That mental health, that aggression, because and I'm only saying this because of all the videos that are coming out. You know,
Yeah. So I mean, my response to that would be kind of like when you talk about your, the FTO and the way you're training and stuff like that,
mhm.
right? So I'm gonna paint a picture for you, right?
Okay, go
Um,
ahead.
just picture a, you know, an aggressive male at home.
Hmm.
Like he is he is totally, you know, raging, and think about a police officer that maybe just started his job, right?
Hmm.
21, 22-year old, right? Just coming out of the academy. This is his first week. This is the first time he's left from under his FTO, right? So he went through the academy. He or she went through the academy. He or she went through, and we're living in the times of multi-gender now. So I don't want to just stick to the he or she, right? I'm not. I'm
Hmm.
in the the effort
Just
of like being inclusive. Let's just say he, she, they, them.
just call me Day.
I got
Just
it.
call me Day.
The person goes
Other
in.
pronouns.
Officer
Yeah.
goes in. The officer goes in, and he's or she is addressing that male, and you're
Mhm.
in. You can see King Newborn's. His palace behind him, right? You just walked into this person, his home,
It's
that he
home.
pays the
Yeah.
bills. His wife is there.
Yeah.
His kids is there.
Hmm.
This is his place where he feels all powerful, where he's the
Hmm.
supreme
Mm.
being, right? And he has had 100 with aggression, and you're a 21-year-old or a 22-year-old who, maybe still living with your parents, but you
Hmm.
have to walk into that house and be able to tell, King Newborn in his domain.
To
You
calm
have to tell
down.
him in his
To calm
domain
down. And
to
my brother
sit
is pretty
down. You have
good.
to tell him to be quiet. sit down over there
Mm,
until I'm ready to talk to you because I'm conducting an investigation at that point. And when you go into a domestic violence situation, you have to keep everyone separate if you're going to get the truth. You have to keep the
Mm,
kids over there, the wife over there, and the husband over there, and you have to speak to everybody independently. And then you bring
mhm,
the conversations together, and then you listen where you hear the variations, and then you make a determination of who's the aggressor if someone's going to get arrested. So take that situation and think about the level of aggression that you're gonna have to meet King Newborn where he's at. And if he's not
Mm,
willing to come down from 110 and listen to logic, then you're gonna have to bring your aggression level up to 111 to be
right.
able to get him to comply. So you have
mm,
to be, as a cop, you have to be capable of that at the
Mm-hmm.
very first day that you're on your own. So you have that capability, but then sometimes you go into a situation where that person's maybe at only at 30, and
Mm-hmm.
you meet them at 110, not
Yeah.
even realizing that this person is just at 30. So
Mm-hmm.
it's you have the capability for 111, but you have to know when it's
Right.
suited. It's
Yeah.
situational based. So, mistakes are going to be made, and some people just kind of live at 111, and that's kind of where the problem is. Like, you just got to know when to check that aggression and bring it down and tone it
Mm-hmm.
down and just talk to people at a human level.
Mm-hmm.
mm,
Yeah.
So you would say you possibly need to be not just physically strong, but mentally strong as well. Like you said, to be able to step in an environment like that, you
Yeah,
have to assess like how
yeah,
much pressure should I be applying at this particular point? How much aggression, am I coming in as actually trying to be at peace, or for me to really understand what's going on, I'm just going to arrest everybody. We'll put everybody in handcuffs and separate everybody so then I can understand what's going on. I'm just saying those are some situations that end up not so favorable.
yeah. You're not just your physical jujitsu, but your mental jujitsu and your verbal jujitsu have to be on point to be able to take those situations and de-escalate them. You know what I mean? And gain compliance and cooperation.
Is there a such thing as a sensitivity course?
Mm.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we do have sensitivity training.
Okay. How often do you all do that? Or is that just a
That
one-time
is
thing?
done. That is done very frequently. Actually, that's like more of one of those like a caddis training. Training that you do on that you go to every. Those like if you're at work. Like sexual harassment
Oh,
training
yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. Sensitivity training is kind of like that.
oh, wow.
Judge
I did
Judge
not know that.
Owens, Omar, have you ever had an incident that required you to attend additional sessions, and what kind of sessions? Okay, I'll leave you
I
guys
smile
to
because
5 minutes to that.
no,
What?
I smile because I'm like, you talked a little bit about it with us. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Uh,
he's asking you, have you ever had anything, that it had you had to attend maybe any mental health courses, I guess.
yeah,
Um,
he needs to specify, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not I'm not gonna
That
go
attend
too much.
additional sessions.
Yeah, so I've had incidents where I had to use my firearm, and I had to get trained. I had to go see the psychs for that. Didn't have to spend any extra time with the psychs. I did my mandatory training and my mandatory times, and I got cleared to go back to duty or to go back to work. Where I didn't have to. You can't, because the psych cleared you doesn't mean that the investigation is cleared. It just
mm,
means that psychologically you're
No.
cleared, but the
Yeah.
investigation still go on. And then there were incidents. There were other incidents. Not for the psych, but where like the Office of Police Complaint, we call them OPC. I said before we finish, I was going to be able to tell you. So it's OPC in DC, Office of Police Complaint. That's a
okay.
civilian board that runs. Like OPC made recommendation for me to go back to the academy before because of the way I dealt with a traffic incident.
Oh,
Right, a girl said that I tried to run her over with my car. Which, think about it, you're in a traffic stop, right? You're at a
oh,
traffic stop, and You're always going to be in your car. You're supposed to remain in your car, right? I never stepped her out of a car. Okay. I never stepped her out of the vehicle throughout this interaction. But she was out of her car. I'm finished with the traffic stop and I'm leaving, but I almost run her over with my car. So what do you think happened
Okay.
there? But
Okay.
through their investigation, they determined that I was at fault for the interaction. So yeah, I wasn't a perfect police officer, but that wasn't the situation where it wasn't my fault. But yeah, so to answer your question, I've had incidents where I had to go to get training or recommendations were made for me to go to like a shrink or training and so on.
Okay.
Oh my God.
If I could just interject here, just as somebody who served, right, who served in the military, and it's nothing like being a police officer, because the way I look at it, when I was in the military, if we were gone somewhere, if we had to go on a deployment, we were an occupying force in another country, and we were trying to instill either order, or either we were trying to do civil conversations, or whatever our mission was, right? And I just think, like, your area of operation every day is your home. It's where you live, your family lives. And you talked about the kid who's 21, who came out of the academy, and he's trying to go up against somebody who's like, 350 pounds or whatever, and just trying to, like, compartmentalize everything. I ain't know shit when I was 21. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I mean, and thank goodness I didn't get deployed at 21, and I didn't have to escalate my own force. But I just tell you, just as a person who goes out in an environment, and every day your life could be at risk. I don't know about anybody else, but I've got PTSD from the military and from spending time in the sandbox. So I'm just saying, I mean, I think that you guys are put in an interesting situation, because you're out there trying to regulate your communities, which can be interesting. It's very good to hear that, that there is, we like to focus on solutions here, in this show. So it's interesting here about the Civilian Complaint Review Board. Like, that's a game changer. Like, I didn't know that, that was even a thing. So I'm like, if civilians run that, that's something that regular people, I think that in other states, if they have something, that's something to use. Okay, I'm done. I just wanted to state that. I just wanted to put that out there and just speak from that
Mhm.
experience. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Um,
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I have to find out who this was.
Wanna,
Go ahead.
I'm gonna ask the officer. I want to go back to the George Floyd situation, and I want to address you like you were one of the officers at the scene of that
Mhm.
situation. So if my mind, if I'm thinking correct, I think it was five officers at that scene. But I want to take you back to the time that they began to push him in the car, when they were trying to get him in the car before they got him on the other side and he was on the ground. If you were an officer at that scene and they had begun to push him in the car and they couldn't get him in the car, at what point, as an officer, at what point, or would there have been any point that you would have said something or tried to interject so that the situation on the ground never happened?
I mean, hindsight's 2020, and I hate to try to Monday morning quarterback, officers that are actually in scene. So when when we talk about capabilities, that's why I talk about training, like being able to gain compliance in other ways. Like if you have the right amount of training and if you're equipped with the right skills, you can get compliance in the way that you need it to, so it doesn't get to the point where that person winds up where you have to put your foot in their neck for an extended period of time. So just being, knowing myself, I would have been able to get him in the car, right? So that's first and foremost. Knowing myself and the way I operate, I would have been able to get him in the car, and I would hope the situation on the ground never had to happen. But if you're looking at it from, the five officers that were there's standpoint, Chauvin's probably, I don't remember what his years were, but he probably had like 15 years or something like that. So he was probably like, one of the senior guys in the
So
scene.
you,
So the other officers were probably, junior officers to a certain extent. So they were kind of following his lead. It was his scene. They were just there to lend their support in a certain way. I mean, now I know that officers are being empowered to. It doesn't matter what time frame you have in the department. If you see something going on, it always has been like that. But you know, how many times have you seen someone put their foot on someone's chest? That
Man,
happens all the time. How many times have you seen someone put their foot on someone's back? That happens all the time. One of the main issues that I have as an officer with that particular scene is the fact that he was in handcuffs, right?
mm,
So once you can use force, you can use force to gain compliance, but once that person is in handcuff,
that's
force
it.
is supposed to cease, right?
Yeah.
So, but he wasn't assaulting him, but I mean, how much of a threat is he going to be at that point? And like I said, he had
Mhm.
his hands in his pocket, so his hands were available. If you really needed to subdue him, you know, at a certain point, we have to put people in what we call the recovery position, and the recovery position is not on the ground, face down, with my head in your neck. The
Yeah.
recovery position is more like the fetal position, like you put them in the fetal position, or you sit them up with their legs crossed or stuff like that.
And hands behind the
That's
back. Yeah.
where that situation should have wound it up, right? It should have wound up where he was seated up against the car with his hands behind his back and his leg crossed or something like that. I don't know what they were waiting for at that point and why he was just sitting there with his knee in his on his neck with his hands in his pocket. I can't tell you what they
Okay,
were doing at that point.
let me make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So
Hmm.
you're saying that because Chauvin was the senior officer, those officers were supposed to follow everything that he was doing. Is that what you're saying?
Not no, not really. No, I'm
Okay,
just saying
that's the
because
point.
yeah, no, there's no department that's gonna tell officers that if someone's doing something wrong, you got to stay there and follow what they're doing.
Okay,
No,
that's the
but
point I was. Okay, right.
the point that I was trying to make it's that restrict re, restraining subjects and taking someone down to the ground and all that stuff is so commonplace in police that to you it looks bad, but for a regular officer at that point, it didn't look bad until afterwards when you look at it and you're like, oh crap, no, I'm realizing that all these things happen, that when you're in the moment you're not even like looking at it from that perspective, and there are other things in play as well.
So
But no,
nothing he was saying on the ground would have made a difference as to the way that you would have subdued him or the way they subdued him. The fact that he was saying he couldn't breathe, the fact that he was calling for his, none of that would have made a difference in the way they should have moved around the way they was holding him, act sharp and to back up. Like you don't think
No,
anything that he was saying would have made a difference?
I think that he said that he was saying that like after he was in handcuffs, he wasn't supposed to be down
Yeah,
there on the ground
yeah,
with his
that's
knee in
what he
his back.
said.
Like
Yeah,
he was. I think that Ormo was telling us that like after you get the restraints on him, then you leave him in you put him in a position where he's supposed to be of relief.
yeah,
Like
you
you're
put him
supposed
in
to
a
put him.
recovery. You're
yeah,
supposed to be in a recovery position. Once
Right.
So we're probably going to be in a fight with him. Like if it's active resistance, like I said, there's active resistance, and then there is, assaultive. I didn't see any part of it where he was assaultive, but I saw where he was actively resisting before he got into handcuffs. But once he got into handcuff, then he's supposed to
Correct.
be put in a
Mhm.
recovery position. So he should be either, like if he was having like a medical condition, but he's still like fighting. 'Cause a lot of times when people are going through excited delirium, and excited delirium is like if you're on PCP, or if you're any form of drugs or stuff like that, meth, and you're kirking out and you're just going crazy. You still need to get him in handcuffs, but once you get him in handcuffs, you're trying to get him medical attention at that point. So you're probably waiting for the ambulance or something like that to show up. But they're not gonna just say, okay, they're waiting for the ambulance to show up, so I'm gonna act normal into the ambulance. They're gonna still keep going. So, but you have to keep him, in restraint and safe to a certain extent, prevent them from harming themselves in a sense. But you know, I want to make this clear: standing there, or kneeling there with his hands in his pocket, with his knee on his neck after he's in handcuffs, is not taught in any police department. The use of force continuum says once you get them in restraint, then force kind of ends at that point.
So they know this. This is what is being taught to them, so they know. Okay. So if they choose to do what they want to do, they're moving on their own. My.
So so me and John also, we talked about this just because of the fact that we just used to be in the service. And I think I talked to you about this too, God level, when we talked earlier. Um, in my 20 years in the military, and I think that this actually carries over to the police force too. And when we're speaking about police brutality, I think it lends to this. There's three types of people who join the military. Three
Mm,
types of people who
mm,
decide to do public service. Right? You've got the
okay.
one who comes in, God country, I love this country, I want to give back to it. Blah 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 blah. Right? You get the category where I was in, who joined the military. I was like, this is a come up. I get I get money for school.
Mm-hmm.
I get the benefits. You know what I'm saying? And didn't understand the true meaning of what a soldier was until I
Mm-hmm.
actually came in. Right? Then you get that third person, and me and John were talking about this. That third person is the person who comes in because they want power. They're the person who maybe they have some other issues. They want to learn how to disarm somebody in 6 seconds. They want to be powerful. They want to feel like some people, like it's almost like the same thing of why people they decide to take different types of what am I saying? I'm not saying it right. My hamster's gone off the track. But still, there's three types of people who I think decide to do public service. And John was even saying that he knows that guy, the one who wanted the power, the one who wanted the power. He's the one who
Mm-hmm.
listens to really aggressive,
Mhm.
type of
Yeah.
music and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that when we're talking about um like police brutality, in my opinion, you guys don't have to agree or anything. I think it comes down to a type of personality, you know, that decides to that power is 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 elevated above anything, and don't have the interpersonal skills as a person, not as an officer, but as a person, or not as a soldier, but as a person, to not be able to de-escalate, or not be able to understand different cultures, or not have the cultural sensitivity, or the emotional empathy, to be able to see who they're in charge of taking care of, and to be able to de-escalate situations based on that. Because I know, like, when I went over into, I call Kuwait my 15-month stand tour. I went to Afghanistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, like all those stands. And when you go in there, when you're dealing with people and you have a weapon, for me, I was like, I need to, even if I don't empathetically have it, I have to intellectually have the the wherewithal to be able to see these people, as human beings, fully fleshed people. Even if you're trying to get control of a situation, just still see them as people. So I just wanted to put that out there in the atmosphere, and
So
just say that.
to that I'll say this, right? So I
Yeah,
get what you're saying. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts
that
absolutely,
part.
right? But so the greater majority of interactions that I had as a law enforcement officer, um, outside of, let's just say, proactive policing, because when you're doing proactive policing and responsive policing are kind of like, it's still policing, but when you're in the profession, you kind of know the difference between both, right?
Okay.
So let's just go into responsive policing in a sense, then, right? Um, Most of the times, right, when you're looking at those, when you with the most of the interactions that you're going to have is not going to be with the person that is going about their 9 to 5 and living their life and going to church and becoming a choir boy and stuff like that. Most of the times, those people, your interactions with them are very limited. um, they go about their days, and if it's not outside of like traffic and stuff like that, you don't really interact with that side of the public very
Mm,
much. um,
okay.
the people that we see as law enforcement, and they're the individuals that when they were growing up, they never listened to their parents. They never listened to their grandparents. Never listened to their
Mm.
mom, dad, grandma, none of that. Nobody could get to
Mm.
them. And they go to school and they never listen to the teachers. They never listen to the coaches. They never went to church. Never listened to no pastor, no community leader. Nobody could get to them. No sense of authority figure in their life was able to curve the kind of behavior that lead to them becoming adults now and having to deal with law enforcement. And we start seeing those individuals all the way from maybe 12, 13, 14. We start little Jamal, you know what I mean? Like, when are you gonna, like, we start going to the same, you'll find as law enforcement, we go to the same houses, the same calls over and over again for the same, juvenile runaway or missing person, or the parents can't deal with them, so they call law enforcement, right? But I don't want to get too far into the weeds of the conversation. The point that I'm trying to make is now they get to adults and then they find out now, they have to deal with us, and we don't take,
Mm.
we, we're in the profession where we can't just take no. Like,
Mm.
I can't just take no and walk away. You can't tell me, if I tell you to step out of the vehicle, you can't just tell me no and I'm just gonna walk
Okay.
away. That's not an option for me. Law enforcement is the only one of the only jobs. There might be military, might be another one, and there are a few that you can get arrested for not doing your job, right? Everybody else doesn't do their job and they just get fired or whatever.
Mm.
Law enforcement is
Oh.
malfeasance if I refuse to do my job.
Oh
That's malfeasance
wow.
and you can get arrested for that, right? So I can't take no. So I have to try to get compliance in some way, shape, or form. If I tell you to step out of a car, you know what I mean? Now you find, we have general orders and special orders and stuff like that, that we are, or SOPs, standard operation procedure, standard operating procedures that we have to
Yep.
follow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if I come up to you and I'm talking to you and I get any sense of like, okay, this person might be under the influence, or it doesn't have to be alcohol, it could be drugs or whatever, but I'm trying to get you to step out of the vehicle so I can make an assessment of that, and I ask you to step out of the vehicle. If you comply with me and you get out of the vehicle, a lot of times the incident dies right there. But if you tell me no, I can't accept no and just say, you know what, I'm sorry for bothering you. I'm gonna go back to my cruiser and I'm gonna go drive away. You know what I mean? It's
Damn.
It's kind
if
of
I
facts, yo.
Wait a
if I
minute. So basically, you pull me over. I'm speeding. I'm not incriminating myself when I say that.
no, I'm
Is it
listening.
okay? I'm doing 91 and a 60.
Hmm.
Not incriminating myself. You pull me over. I give you all of my information. You tell me to step out the car, and I tell you no. It's a problem from that moment on.
Well, I'm just gonna go off of the scenario that you present me. 91 in a 60 is 31 miles over, which means it's reckless. And if it's reckless, then yes, you can be arrested for that. So if
Facts.
you were talking about like 15, you know what I mean, in a 60, so you're doing 75 in a 60, then that's not reckless. And all you need at that point is a ticket. So if I come to you and I'm talking to you, I'm interacting with you, and I'm just trying to write you a citation for the fact that you were going 15 over, but then when I start talking to you, I'm starting to get some answers. I'm hearing some slur in your speech. I'm sort of
Mm.
smelling a little stench of alcohol coming from your breath and stuff
Mm.
like that. I have to step you out of a vehicle at that time to make an assessment of whether you're capable of driving, because
Right.
there is that aspect of wrongful death and stuff like that, right? Where if an officer was interacting with you and you were drunk, I just gave you a ticket, and you have a ticket in your vehicle to show that I just gave you a ticket. So I stopped you 15 minutes ago, and then 15 minutes later, you go on the road and you run into a minivan and you kill a whole family,
Yeah.
Oh
or some
wow.
kids are
Okay.
going through a neighborhood and
Oh
they go
man.
across the street and you wipe them
Mhm.
out. They were like, well, this officer stopped her up there and he didn't do anything
Mm.
about it. So you find the department is now liable for the fact that you basically
Yeah.
didn't do your job. And if you done your job, you could have prevented that further incident down the road. And that's kind of like the way law enforcement operates, like cops operate under those bases. So we kind of have to do the job that is expected of us in that moment. And if all I can say, is if when I see the situations where someone is complying, Like
Mhm.
I don't remember which this last one was, but this dude, like, they really was it. Where was it? Where it's like a couple bunch of cops are just beating up on this dude and he's complying. Like that kind of stuff hurts me. Like I'm like he's
Are you talking
complying. You
about
know what I mean? Like he's
the police officers in Mississippi?
yes,
$400 million lawsuit.
yes.
They beat and tortured these two
That
men
one
for
I was like,
90
yeah,
minutes.
that one I
They
was
were
torn up
taking
about that
turns, yeah, with their
because he
tasers.
was crying for his mom and all that stuff,
Yeah,
and he
Oh
wasn't
man.
doing
yeah.
like they like one dude came from around the car and just like laid a couple of kicks in on the guy while he was down on the ground. Like
Mhm.
who operates like that? Like that kind of
Right,
stuff is rogue. That is
right,
rogue to me, and
right.
anything that they
Okay.
get, they deserve. But in a situation, where it's kind of very simple. Like I said, we can't take no. There are some times where cops are making mistakes and they're violating your right, and if you know that and you can articulate that,
Hmm.
like you said, they wrongfully arrested you, they wrongfully detained you. There's a
Right.
lawsuit at the end of that you can file. Um, but in that moment, you know what I mean? Compliance is probably going to be the best
The
resort.
best. Okay. So let's do a traffic stop. 'Cause that seems to be where all of this stuff be happening. You pull up to a car, you are talking to the driver. Do you have authority to talk to everyone in the car?
Yeah, the Supreme Court. I don't want to go into case laws, but the Supreme
Okay.
Court has ruled that for my personal safety, I
Mm-hmm.
can I can
You've
step
asked for identification from
I can
everyone in the
ask
car.
I can ask for ID from everyone in the
Mm-hmm.
car. The only person that is um,
required.
responsible for providing me identification is a
It's the
driver,
driver,
because
Okay.
driving is not a
right?
it's not
It's a
a right,
privilege.
it's a privilege, right?
Mm.
So you kind of sign a contract that if you're driving a vehicle, you're supposed to be able to provide me with identification. But everybody in the vehicle is supposed to be able to at least provide me their names,
Mm-hmm.
because people can be in the vehicle that actually has warrants and stuff like that, or there could be
Sure.
like a murderer sitting in the back seat, and I stopped the vehicle and I didn't know because I didn't ask their name and date of birth, and I can run them for my personal safety, or I can pat, you know what I mean? Like if I feel a need to, I can step them up, pat them down, make sure they don't have any weapons, and put them back in the vehicle. The
Okay.
Supreme Court has ruled that we officers are allowed to do that for personal safety reasons.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Did
Wow.
you have a follow up on that? No. What is it?
I'm
I'm
trying not
glad
to.
you are keeping it. Are you okay, Omar? Are you good?
Yeah, no, no,
Yeah.
I'm straight.
Listen, you
Nah,
have been
no,
like, oh,
no, bring him
You've been
on, bring him
amazing.
on.
you are
You've been
doing
absolutely
amazing.
amazing. Yeah.
Here's what I think that I want to ask Israel some questions, right?
Mm.
Because Israel, you talked a little bit about your past a couple weeks ago, and maybe I don't know if this is a time that you would like to like if we wanted to rewind that a little bit and talk about you said that you have been a we'll call it complainant of police brutality incidents in your past. Because of your past, can you speak a little bit about that, so Omar knows, and so our audience also knows a little bit, if you don't mind.
Before you answer that, I just want to say one thing. I'm sorry, brother. I didn't cut you off. I just want to say first and foremost, name of this podcast is things that people don't want to talk about. I emphasize this is a conversation of things that people don't want to talk about or even gather understanding, so that way we can properly handle ourselves in certain situations in life. Most of the time, everything starts with a simple conversation.
That part.
Simple conversation. You know. Like Ms. Tanner said in the beginning, we try to offer solutions to our community. The community helps us, we help the community. We help our service. Go ahead, my brother. I'm sorry, I just want to say that.
Okay.
Oh,
So
and this is a peaceful place. My bad. It's a peaceful place.
yeah, there have been several times when I've been involved in police brutality. I can't honestly say that there's been a time where I can just blame the police 100%. But in the drug game, it's a totally different perspective. Sometimes you riding dirty and the police stop you, and you want to be cordial with the police because you know you riding dirty. Then there's certain times you ride, you ain't dirty, and the police stop you, and you know they just messing with you. So you gonna talk your junk because you know you ain't dirty and you know they just messing with you. So depending on what type of police officer you get, you might have some issues. They might try you. They might rough you up a little bit. I've been hog tied. I've been beat. I didn't been through it all with the police. But then again, what you also have to understand is that's what that lifestyle offers, right? It would be different if you was talking to somebody who's a regular normal citizen just going to work 9 to 5. But when you're in the dope game, it's different. These things come along with the game. One thing as a dope dealer, you're gonna have run-ins with the police. That's gonna happen. And how a lot of times the outcome determines you unless you then got caught with something. Now you will see a lot of dudes who will get caught and you'll see their energies go up, meaning because they know they caught, now they want to act a fool. Then you'll see some dudes get caught, and they'll just be like a little mouse because they know they caught. I'm just gonna pipe it down because I know I'm already in trouble. It just really depends on the type of mentality that an individual has. So this is why, for me, the mentality of a police officer is very important. And the reason why I say that is if you got a person that you're stopping that's got an aggressive mentality, and he's dealing with a police officer who's got an aggressive mentality, you already know what that's going to end up being.
Yep.
You already know what that situation is going to end up being. So who becomes the one that's right and who becomes the one that's wrong in a situation? You got two aggressive mentalities. Are you, as a police officer, meet me with an aggressive mentality? Or are you gonna stay in job mode and do your job and try to deflate the situation before you meet me with that aggressive mentality? So it just varies. Like I said, I've never been the person who can honestly say the police was 100% wrong. A lot of times, I put myself in that position because of my aggressive behavior. But in that type of lifestyle, that's just what you do. You don't get PTSD in the dope game from getting beat by the police. That's part of it. That comes with it.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? You just
Yeah.
don't. Just how it goes. It's part of it. And again, you'll come across some police officers who will be a police officer, meaning they're gonna do everything the right way. And the only time they're gonna get out of hand is when you do. But then you come across some, as soon as they come to your window, they coming with you. And it's just what it is. It's just part of the game. Once you get known and they expect certain things out of you when they stop you, or when they get out that car, they come and prepared. Now I've never been shot. Very few times I've had the police pull their guns on me, but I didn't got stumped out a few times. Like literally.
And he laughs about it. Thank you, brother. Thank you for laughing.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
I
That
ain't
you
got
say all that.
supposed to do that, man.
One of the good things that when I started policing, there wasn't any body worn camera. Body worn camera wasn't BWC weren't universal. It towards the end of my career, and maybe midway, we started getting body worn cameras, and that's kind of checked a lot of that stuff. Because literally, like speaking, like even myself, I give a personal anecdote. I go to resident. I remember one time I went to a residence, and we used to like the cops and the street boys. We used to go at it like tit for tat, verbally. When sometimes you could have de-escalated the situation. Now with BWC, you have to check that, and you gotta stay in de-escalation mode all the time. But like for instance, I went to this home, and it was a Airbnb, and this was before body worn camera, and I had this guy with me. I'm not gonna say his name, a fellow officer, but he had dreadlocks. Because in DC, you can in DC you can wear cops can wear dreadlocks.
I did
You
not
can
know
wear
that.
earrings. You can wear your earrings. DC is a very liberal department. So he had dreadlocks and all that, and he's from the street, and he was young. So he speaks like I'm more like professional and just straightforward like all cops. You know what I mean? He was more like a homeboy, and we knocked on the door, and we asked for the homeowner, and we found out later on we left. We told him to keep the knives down. We left. Then we came back. Second time, the neighbor that called it in stopped us before and told us that the homeowner is not there and it's in Airbnb. So basically, they don't really have, you know what I mean? Like they're not the homeowner, right? And I went back and we knocked on the door this time again, and this time we insisted that they shut the music down, and who's not on the lease or who doesn't rent the property should actually leave because they're creating a disturbance in the community. And it was some college kids. One of the kids said, he looks at Bacchus. Oh, can we
It's
take that
okay.
out?
We didn't hear that. We didn't hear that. Mm-mm. I don't know who you're talking
Sorry.
about.
He looked at my partner and he says, I have with you. You know what I mean? You, I have with you. But your man right here, pointing at me, he need to go get himself some, you know, and and chill out. And I said, okay, where your mom's at? You know, and that, I'm just saying like that's how you used to like there used to be a rapport like that where you kind of just if he's joning you joan too and you just kind of you know what I mean it was kind of
I've
like
seen that.
but
I've seen
that
a video like that. Go ahead.
all, all his friends kind of started laughing at him and that kind of took him to like a place of embarrassment and I look back at that and I'm like if I had body worn camera I would not have said that because after we had body worn camera all that kind of stuff we cut that stuff out like cops didn't we didn't really like go tit for tat like that with the street dudes anymore
Mm.
and you can tell sometimes they miss it too because for them that's their level of rapport like you can't go to
Yeah.
them with the properness like it's kind of like your mama jokes you know what I mean it's like
Mm.
you're gonna join on me I'm gonna join in you're gonna rag on me and then you kind of walk away with some form of like it's like a street respect to a certain extent
Yeah.
um that stuff gonna get taken away and then the next thing that I want to say um in reference to what Israel said is when we're like let me see how do I put this without putting
Now say it raw.
everybody without putting everybody in a certain light, right?
Mm.
Policing is kind of profiling to a certain extent.
Mm.
Um, and a lot of what we see going on is presented by the profile of the young black male, right? If every time for I wouldn't say every time, but in DC it's a strong black community, right? Like in Southeast DC was like a 95% black community, with a
Oh
little,
wow.
little speckles of Hispanic and very few whites in the southeast part of DC. When the calls go out, most of the times what we're looking for is young black male between the age of you know 21 to 27, um 5'6" to about 6 foot, between 140 pounds to 100 and that's like very broad, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, dressed in black, pants, blue jeans, black shirt, whatever.
That's
Or
95% of your community that you're
that's
policing,
95% of
basically.
my community as far as like males is concerned. So what that kind of does is if I'm driving at that point and I'm doing a canvas as a law enforcement officer and I see you know um 3 or 4 black males fitting that description, they're not going to go untouched. They're not going to
Mm.
go on. When I say untouched, I don't mean like put my hands on them, but I mean I'm going to make contact. So, and then that contact is going to lead wherever the interactions go based on the way they either address me or, you know what I mean? But in their eyes, I'm pressing them out. But in my eyes, I'm on a canvas for robbery suspects or carjacking suspects or shooting suspect or an assault suspect. But because they're a young black male within that perimeter that I just laid out, I'm gonna have to stop and talk to him. People can change their clothes. That's something that they do, right? So
Hmm.
you that's where a lot of the interactions come from with law
Okay.
enforcement with young black males that kind of create that stigma of we're always pressing them out or we're always abusive or so on and so forth. And like Israel says, sometimes if he is aggressive and and meets up with another aggressive officer, then that begets a lot of what we see, that the community, yeah, that we really really don't want. It just keeps going up and up and up, and for the most part, we're always going to wind up with the upper hand because we have more people to bring to bear, and we have weapons and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
yeah.
So
Omar, have you
yeah, there we
seen
go.
fellow officers beat a citizens unwarranted? Not nothing that comes to mind immediately. I'm trying to think. DC is one of those places that, like I said, OPC, the Office of Police Complaint, is a civilian board, and they take every complaint that comes in. Um, I would never. I don't think. No, nothing comes to mind to answer that question. No, I don't remember a time that I saw someone beat somebody for just no particular reason. Like that's. I don't think that's gonna go down in our department, in the department that I, not our department because I left, but in DC.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question, and I know you're a former police officer. Um, I've heard of this before. I'm just gonna come out with it. So, is there a national fraternal order of police?
There's a FOP. Uh huh.
Okay. When you are as yourself a former police officer, which means you're not active no more, are you still under that order?
The FOP.
I'm not under the FOP anymore as far as like union representation and stuff like that.
Right, right, right.
While I was an active police officer, I was under the FOP, or the union, police union.
Okay, awesome. Just ask.
Yeah, they represent police in you know um, criminal cases or complaints and so on and so forth. So yeah,
Mm,
that's a fact.
Okay. We are coming up on 127. We like to be respectful of everyone's time here. Does anybody have any more questions for Omar coming?
Oh my God.
I'll have a, question. I just want to say I thank you, brother, for coming on,
Yeah.
and it was very insightful with the knowledge that you shared with us. Again, this is things that people don't want to talk to you. I mean, things that people don't want to talk about, brought to you by God level. And the purpose of this is to help aid and assist, and also bring solutions and understanding to our community. This is some of the things that we are lacking. We're not taking the time to talk to each other from a professional level all the way down to the stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad. The only way to heal our community is we have to start having conversations, especially the ones that, again, people that people that don't want to talk about certain things, i.e., because may feel that you're being judged or very uncomfortable. But the conversations need to be had, and that's very important. That is the purpose of this podcast. I just want to say that part. And again, thank you, my brother, for coming on.
Appreciate it. Thanks
On
for having
such
me.
short notice too. We really appreciate it. We really
Yeah, no worries. I
appreciate
mean, if I can leave you guys with just one, if you're gonna advocate for anything for police officers, I would say advocate for more training in the area of uh, like the defensive tactics that I talk about,
it.
right? Where they're more capable of using their arms, because your muscle memory is well trained as far as like you going for your weapon. But if we can become like, if every department, for instance, has like your department doesn't subsidize you going to a mixed martial arts gym or something to that effect. Like if you have
Mm,
more of that training, like I didn't draw my weapon as much through my career because, but everybody else is not 6'3", 220 pounds either. You know what I mean? So I can understand that if I can't judge policing from a perspective of a 5'5", 5'6", 130-pound person, but I know that if they go to judo, or I know that if they go to the jiu-jitsu, If they learn, joint manipulation and pain compliance a little bit more, it will empower them to be able to see that it doesn't matter how big someone is. If you have the right tactics, you can, what I mean, you can gain compliance. And it's very difficult when someone have their arms locked under here and you're trying to pull that arm out. It's very, very hard to get that arm out when someone is locked up like this and you're looking at it and you're seeing 4 or 5 officers piling on this person. You're thinking, why do it take so much people? Trust me, go try to get that arm out. You know what I mean? It's not. And then if you don't know that if you pull on the short limb right here, you're not gonna get that arm out. If you don't know that you have to go out to the very longest distance of and try to bring it out. So just simple stuff like that, like really drilling in those things with officers. Like remember, hold the farthest part of the limb. You know what I mean? Pull from there, and so on and so forth. Just I'm not gonna go too deep into it, but just learning those things will help to bring situations to a de-escalation point, or have someone in cuffs quicker and more frequently. That will help to decrease, you know what I mean, just like more and more and more escalation on the part of officers.
I mean, to me, I know we're trying to wrap this up so we get out of here. Sorry about that, guy level. Sometimes, like, mainly as a police officer, you just need confidence to be able to have certain interactions where it may escalate, beyond your first approach to the situation, or they're already the aggressor and you're trying to de-escalate the situation. So, I just think it's a thing of confidence, and not having a certain level of confidence, you will result to the fact that not only do I have a badge, I got a firearm. And, if you're not complying with my voice, maybe my voice isn't, or my verbiage isn't getting across to you, or I got a gun. So I don't know. That's just me per se.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Appreciate that.
Appreciate you, man.
Are you on mute again? Are you on mute again? You can't hear you. Yeah, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
We can't hear you.
Get it together, Ivy.
Get it together, Ivy. I want to thank you, Mr. Omar, for coming on this evening. It was such short notice. The powwow, the little quick powwow that we did yesterday. I'm glad it made you comfortable. I'm glad that you felt comfortable. We did not bring you on here to bash you. I really wanted to understand and to know what type of training were you all receiving before heading out. I think that there should be more training in defensive training. There needs to be not just a walk through the Black History Museum, but somebody needs to, like, you all need to have some type of culture education when it comes to dealing with Black people in different areas of the city, especially in poverty areas.
It's the state stuff.
Yeah, the state. Also, when it comes to the mental health, because you all do see more than your average folks out there when it comes to walking on a scene, in a building, in a house. I have never witnessed a whole family laid out, but I'm sure there are a lot of police officers who have. So, mental health also plays a strong part. And when dealing with these overly aggressive people, I don't think I think the people that are standing next to these overly aggressive officers need to pull them to the side and say, hey, you need to go get some help. Because if not, it's costing lives out there. I get it that you have to be a certain way when coming into a situation, but not every situation requires for you to be at 111. That's it. We'll talk more about that next week. I just wanted to get some background. I want to thank you for that.
Let's add this last little part. That was peace and love from God level. I just want to add the fact that it's not all laid on on police officers to help us to govern our community.
That part.
I want to say, myself included, we, at some point we have to come together as a community to be a community, because some of these young men are
Lost.
led to, okay, I misguided. I'm gonna say misguided due to social media and things that are glorified and portrayed and pumped into our community. I think if we spend more time making sure that we only allow certain things within our community, we can limit some of these things that escalate to the point that we have police officers govern us to the point that it's either dead or jail. So I just want to put that out there. It's not all police fault, and it's not all police's job.
No, it's yeah.
It's not.
Not all of you all are bad. You know, I did last month get pulled over for doing 91 and a 60. I'm not gonna even lie. I made
an open case.
I made 2 phone calls.
Is that an open case?
It was good.
Is that an open case?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's a closed case.
It's closed. I made
okay.
2 phone
You got a
calls,
nurse's license.
and I was.
You got a nurse's license.
She just left my house.
Yeah.
And I.
Yeah. So
you know.
so just to clear one thing that got clear up something that God level says. So for training in DC, it's not just a walk through the museum. We actually sit down and like learn black history and black culture. And then you walk through the museum. So it takes a whole day. It's a whole day thing for the training. And like I said, that just started since the Black History Museum has opened up. And something that Newborn said that I want to just put out there real quick before we wrap it up. So the northwest side of DC is a part of a city where we, the monuments and all that stuff is, and that's where, gentrification has taken its toll a little bit more than over on the southeast side. But let me just give you a quick example of our 2 situations. One situation in both communities. We go over to northeast in like a wider part of town, and someone just did a drive-by and shut up a car, and we try to talk to the people over there in northwest, and there's practically a line of people trying to give you information. They're telling you it's a Toyota Camry, it was DC tags, it was this number, it was that number, it had 4 people in it. You have a next person saying, my video camera is pointed out to the road. You need to come take a look at it. It definitely would have caught the vehicle as it was shooting or as it was going by. You know what I mean? They're giving you. There's a line of people just trying to give you information, and then you go to Southeast DC, and there was a party where there was 200 people there, and there's shooting. 4 or 5 people get shot, 2 dead, 3 injured, and you're asking for information, and everybody is saying, I don't know, Mo. I didn't see anything, Mo. You know what I mean? Which place do you think we're going to be able to solve a crime better? So when we start getting that stigma of snitch and the code of silence, that kind of black omerta code of silence out of the culture, you know what I mean? Like we will start seeing less crime in our communities and stuff like that, and just I just want to put that out there. So yeah, the culture is a part of it that needs to change a little bit for us to see some change in our community.
Yeah, we need to police our community because snitches get stitches is like that's been. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's been a part of our stuff for years. We're talking generations. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I get that. I get that.
I'm glad you brought that up because I talked to Diamond today, who's not with us right now. We love you, we miss you, and we look forward to your return. And I was gonna jump into human trafficking after police brutality, but he said, a good segue will be black on black crime after this.
Ooh.
Part 2, let's get it.
Yes, sir.
I was like,
Part 2, let's get it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, part 2, we're gonna. Would you want part 2 for police brutality, or you want to?
I mean, we never really.
Yeah, we never did really. I wanted to get the I'm
Solution.
Yeah,
trying.
you want to get the meat and potatoes out. We
I want to
understand the
get the
foundation.
training.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to
yeah,
get
yeah.
that foundation laid before I. Yeah.
Before you go in, before you
Yeah.
dig in.
Hey, Omar, would
Before
you
I dig
mind?
in.
Look, I know that Godlove was going to ask you, but I think that you're, especially with your degrees, your criminology, and especially like knowing about like law and justice and stuff. Would you mind coming back next week
I
to
mean, I'm
join us on
bringing up
part two?
Like
um,
Sunday if you're free.
yeah, I can come back next week.
it's part two.
Um,
It's part two.
what time was it again that we started? We started at yeah, the time that you started here was good. That's good for
Yeah.
me.
Oh, that works. That's peace.
Yeah.
That is peace because
Hmm.
Diamond will be here. Hopefully, Creation Divine. We were actually missing both two ladies tonight, Amanda.
Creation Divine and Amanda.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't heard from Amanda. She be disappearing on me.
But we
But we
thank you.
still did it. We still
Yes,
rocked it. We
yes,
still rocked it. All right,
and
it's an hour and 40 minutes.
yeah,
I'm probably gonna. This will be my third time saying it. Thank you, Omar, for coming in and joining us tonight. John,
No
what you
worries.
got for us?
Yeah,
Okay.
peace, King. We appreciate it.
Go ahead. We can pitch it off right there. Just we can
that's
go.
true. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
right.
that's peace.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
It's good. All right.
yeah,
Thanks
that's.
for having me, guys.
All
Thank
right.
you,
All right, thank you
Omar.
again, brother.
Appreciate
You're
you,
welcome.
bro.
All
All
right.
right.
Bye.
Yeah.
Ivy, I'll catch up with you.
Okay.
Okay, definitely, bro.
No worries. Bye.
Definitely. So, God love you. Gotta take us out, girl.
I don't have to take us out. I don't have anything to take us out with. That's
Oh,
the
All right.
truth.
Look, I
I
guess
don't have
thank you for
anything to take
joining
us
us.
out
I
with.
mean, yeah,
That's why I was
I
like,
got it. I was
nah,
just gonna say we could
yeah.
just say goodbye. We could just say
Yeah, we
goodbye.
really can. Yeah,
Say
yeah,
goodbye
yeah.
to who? Say the goodbye who?
To our
Thank you
audience.
for
What do you
joining
mean?
us. Thank you
No,
if
that's
you're
not how we
watching.
end the.
It's okay. It's okay, Godlove. It's
I mean,
okay.
There you
no,
go.
no, I can. It's just
You know he
Yes,
stay
it's a
loaded now.
respectful
Don't
time.
I
do
know.
that.
That's the whole point. That's why this is what we do.
Let,
All right,
let's,
all right.
let's, I
So,
was about
That's
to
why
say,
I
let's
say,
have a.
John,
all right, I got an oldie but a goodie.
what
So
you
I
Okay.
got?
said,
All right.
I activate. Also, part animal, so I animate. Every move is an act of fate. I'm feeling good, but I'm acting great. My mood is chill. The flow is hot, but y'all gotta acclimate. Stay active. Y'all get active. Activate. But hey, give me space. Give me accolades for the knowledge I acknowledge. Don't act standoffish. That's nonsense. If you don't know who the God is, like agnostics, don't be astonished if that God is in me. I'm an activator. I get things started like an actuator, fast and quicker. You couldn't keep up with my metabolism. Yeah, you play the games, but I make the games like activism. Let's talk more activism. Be passive. Psych. Be the antonym. In actuality, you could be an activist like Dr. King. He was passionate. Better known as a pacifist, so I speak my peace, intelligent thoughts, but they already think we're savages. And when I'm rapping through your radio, I'm radioactive acting in. Serious when I act a fool, so I cut it out. Better yet, I axe it out. Potential, I got that, so I axe it out. Yeah, they say life is a but I still axe it out on the date as we celebrate. Our chemistry metaphysically becomes these activities for the ladies that love me. It's lovely because I don't act absurd, nah. But they holler back, what it do? Like action verbs. Because I actualize nothing but the truth, no actual lies. I get high when I activate. It's no surprise how I actuate. I'm an electromagnet. Make you gravitate to my vibe. Action, activate. Yeah, stay cool. Don't agitate. Don't act stuck up like masking tape. I don't mean that you have to sway. Act now. You don't have to wait. Strategize and actualize. See things through with your active eyes. And don't act so arrogant because that's being overactive. That's overrated. That's so distracting. But y'all really think that's so attractive. It's no mystery. They're so distracted. Be proactive. Don't be so static, you mechanical animal with your go-go gadgets. I rest in peace, but still live dynamic. And sometimes I act for the stress relief, but choose stress. I don't mean when endorphins get released, you get depressed, you feel defeat, your active state deactivates. Bump that. Let's reactivate, collaborate, and advocate, emancipate. From a trap house to an open house to graduate, take action and activate.
Hey.
Man, come on, bro.
It's peace, King.
He got
Peace,
That's
peace,
levels,
what's up.
peace.
Yeah.
albums, bro.
Yes.
All right,
This
God
is nice.
levels.
Yes. This is how
I'll
we
see you
get
next
it
week,
done.
guys.
Yeah,
Thanks,
yeah.
Omar.
See you later.
Bye.
Salute,
Bye.
salute.
Peace, peace, peace.
See you guys next
Oh
week.
my God. He got all right.
Who gonna take us out? What's going on?
We
Oh yeah,
did
yeah, yeah.
that.
Push the button, girl. Push the button.
Yeah,
Oh, you
yeah.
need to
Okay,
push the
okay.
button.
I got this.
All right, we'll see y'all next
I'm,
week.
I'm,